Hello, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. See if I can see some of you at least. um, we've had a little bit of a change of plan. Things change, as we all know. And because Venerable Utpala is not feeling well, and this is one of the good things about team teaching, is if one of you can't do it, then probably the other one can do it. And so yesterday, in the middle of a very busy day, when I realized that she probably wasn't going to be able to make it today, I quickly put together a PPT for this class. And I have to say, I did not cover all of the material. I just covered what you definitely had to do for your homework. So that, we talked about there being 3 different things we would talk about in these classes. And the one that we're going to probably miss out on today is the class about how to debate. Because I was getting too tired last night and was worried I wouldn't be able to get up early enough. And also, I'm in Phoenix and drive home from Phoenix and be safe. So I decided to go to bed instead of to continue trying to put the rest of the class together for everybody. That seemed like the wisest and safest thing to do. So if we have time, I won't have a PPT for it, but if we have time, I will go ahead and talk about how one debates, what the process is. But let's see if we get through the rest of the other material first. So, and they're not fancy PPTs. There's hardly any pictures. It's a lot of, as we reminded you last week, it's a lot of technical information, and I wanted you to have that. And let's see, are there any other housekeeping things? Oh, yes. Tim asked me to remind all of the interpreters, whether you're interpreting today or another day, to please be consistent with the words that you use for the different terms that we use, the different technical terms that we use in this class, so that we don't confuse anybody any more than they're already confused. Because it is a technical class, and we want you to be able to have a chance at being able to grasp it as easily as possible. So I think that's all. And I'm sorry, interpreters, you don't have the PPT to look at. I will post it after class for everybody, but it was a bit of a crunch yesterday to do everything I needed to do. Let's just put it like that. So without further ado, as they say, let me share my screen.
虽然是上了很多堂课，真的有时候没有要点赞回。
So let's begin. Let's just close our eyes for a moment.
这个真的很可
And if you're not an interpreter, would you please turn your microphone off? Thank you. So bring ourselves to be very present here this morning together with the intention that we will listen as well as we can. Not just for ourselves, but for all beings in the world. So that we can share with them how to end their suffering. That's the whole purpose. And the only reason to do logic or clear thinking is so we have a clear mind. So we understand who we are, where our world comes from, why we do things, why we see things in our world. And this course gives us the tools to be able to deeply examine those very existential questions about existence that are so important to freeing the ropes that tie us to the particular existence that we're living. So let us set that motivation. And take refuge in these teachings. And let us first imagine a beautiful, exquisite world, a pure world that we would like everyone to live in. Sashi Puki Chukshin Metok Cham Rirab Lingshin Yende Genpadi Sangye Shingdu Mikte Urwargi Jokun Namdak Shingla Chuparsho Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami Sangye Chudam Sukhi Chuknama Jangchu Pardu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Chinsoki Pe Sunam Ki Jola Penchir Sange Juparsho Sange Chudam Soke Chuknam La Jangchu Pardu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Jinso Pe Sunam Ki Jola Penchir Sange Juparsho Sange Chudam Soki Chuknam La Changchu Pardu Dakni Kyapsu Chi Taki Jinso Ki Pe Sunam Ki Jola Penchir Sange Juparsho. So we're taking refuge. We're taking refuge in the ability to become an enlightened being. We're taking refuge in all the teachings and paths that get us there. We're taking refuge in those who have gone before us. And really, the ultimate refuge is understanding emptiness in the pen. Thank you. Let's make sure I don't have any messages I need to see from someone before we start. Okay, so let's start. You guys can see the slide?
Yes.
Thank you, Eka. So we're studying a group of texts called the Dura. And it's a kind of literature in which the great Buddhist masters of the past, from all of the different colleges of Buddhism, all of the, like Drepung and Sarah May and Sarah J, and have taken the important ideas and the important information in the Pramanavartika, right, in the logic, and made separate books about them. And Pramanavartika, which we talked about before, it's a very, very difficult book. And so, of course, we need commentaries on it. And so we're going to study 3 different duras. Oh, you don't see the next slide. What happened here? There we go. So we're going to study 3 different duras. The first one is called the Yongsen Dura. And this is the key to the logic machine. And it was written by Perpachok Jampa Solchum Gyatso. He lived around 1825 to 1901. And you may have heard the word Yongsen before, or Yongsen Nampa Ni. Ni means 2. And so basically, Yongsen Nampa means the 2 Yongsens. So who are the Yongsens? Well, the Yongsens are the teachers of the Dalai Lama. So what their job is to get the new Dalai Lama, when he's little, or she's little, in the future we have a female Dalai Lama, to remember their Bakchak Sepas, to remember who they were in their last reincarnation. Those seeds, to wake those seeds up. And quite often they really show themselves at about age 16. But that's the job of the Yongsen. And so that was the job of Perpachok Jampa Solchum Gyatso. He was a Yongsen. And he wrote this, or gathered, together the information and wrote this dura. The second dura is called Se Dura. Se Dura by Nawang Tashi. And Nawang Tashi was, oh, let's go back. And I don't have dates for him. Nawang Tashi was a student of the great Jamyang Shepa, who was a textbook writer for Drepung Monastery. Se means son, or in my case, in my name, Gyelse, it means daughter. So we could say that Se means a child, but a spiritual child. So like my name, which Master Shantideva also had, I get to have his name. Gyelse means child of the Buddhas. So it's a spiritual or close discipleship. So Nawang Tashi, Jamyang Shepa, he was a close disciple of Jamyang Shepa. So he wrote this textbook for Drepung Monastery. And there's this funny thing, Drepung means rice, and Sarah means hailstones. So they used to teach each other, well, the rice can cover the hailstones. And then Sarah would say, well, the hailstones can destroy the rice. And they used to joke back and forth. They probably still do. So the Saitdura was written for the Gomang College of Drepung. And Jamyang Shepa's books are the basis for it. And they are, and the books are the basis, of most of the translators in the West that we know. Jeffrey Hopkins, Professor Thurman, Christopher George, Joshua Cutler. And why is that? It's because they were all students of Geshe Wangyal. And Geshe Wangyal was a Mongolian. And the Mongolians all belonged to Gomang College of Drepung. So you can see how this all works. And that's the lineage. All of the schools use this Sedura as well, and we're using it. The next one, it's really interesting. I'm doing all of this. Usually I have my big monitor, so I have different screens I can work on. But now I'm having to jump between screens on my little laptop. So this is the next one we're going to study, is Ratu Dura. Oh, let's go back. There we go. So Ratu Dura, Ratu is an important monastery outside of Lhasa, the capital city of Tibet. And they also had a branch outside the city, which they would use called Jang. And why is it called Jang? Because it's in a little town called Jang. And all the great debaters from Sera and Drepung and Ganden, they would pack up their knapsack and their bedroll, and they would walk to Jang, and they would go for debates. And in the winter, in fact, they would debate there for 3 months. So Ratu Monastery was very famous for a certain type of logic and a certain logical text. And the first ever Dura text was written in Tibet, was written by the great scholar, or a great scholar, from Ratu Monastery. And his name was Master Chokla User. And he lived around 1500. And so we're going to be studying the Ratu Dura. It is the mother of all Dura texts. And up until about 25 years ago, nobody could find this text. Because when the Tibetans left and went to India, they weren't able to bring all of their texts and things with them, and they had to try and remember them and write them down. But up until about 25 years ago, there seemed to be no copy of this text around. But maybe it was 35 years ago. Anyway, pretty recent history. It was found 35 years ago, 25 years ago. It was found by a man named Gene Smith, or he helped to find it. So there's only this one, or there was only this one copy in the world of this commentary. And one day, somebody brought it into the computer input center that ALL has at Sarah one day. And they said, I think you might find that this text is important. And ALL saved it. And it was input. And they approached the current Ratu monastery head. His name is Chonung Ratu, and asked him if he wanted to pay for the printing. And he did. And so they printed it and they gave it away. ALL gave it away to anybody who wanted it, all over Tibet and all over India. So this is also one of the commentaries that we're going to be studying, the Ratu Dura. You didn't hear. Let me go back. There's Ratu Dura. My buttons aren't working so clearly on my computer. So then next we're going to talk about the Dura. So the structure of a Dura is that there will be about 15 important topics covered in a Dura. And these 15 are presented in 3 sections. Okay? And this is how you learn something in the monastery. There's 3 steps, 1, 2, 3. And step 1 is called gak. Everybody say gak. Gak means to choke someone, to stop something. And it refers to a step in logic in the Duras when you present a subject. Well, yeah, when you first present a subject, you get a bunch of crazy people coming up and saying, I think it's like this. And someone else says, well, I think it's like this. And another person says, I think it's like this. Right? There are 10 or 15 crazy people who come up one by one to present how they think something is. So in the book, you'll see that they come up and they say, I think emptiness is this yellow light that comes to you. Something really, crazy. I think emptiness is the black hole of the universe, right? And then the next part is the defender blowing that person away. So gok really means like to blow somebody away. So Shen Lung Gakpa that you see here, say Shen, Luk Gakpa, means we let the other guys come first. We let them say what they think first. And it's a really beautiful way to learn. We don't find out, say, what emptiness is right away. We find out what it is not. So Shenugakpa is the first step, and it's really very sweet and beautiful. So the Dura starts with debating. Somebody will come and say, emptiness is this green light that shows up over your head. And then our side, me in the debate, will blow them away. And that's called Gok. So this first section of the Dura is always Shen Nu Gakpa, which means blowing away the other guy. So while you're reading each of these syllogisms, hopefully you can translate that word, each of these debates in a specific format, right? Know that that's the first part. Okay. And there are, this text has enough syllogisms, our text for this course, to keep you occupied the whole rest of your life. Don't try to read them all now. Just pick one and see if you can understand it. And get your friends to help you. Take it to the debate ground. Hopefully you guys will create study groups and debate groups to work on this stuff together. I really encourage you to do that. So the second step is called shock. We'll get to that in a minute. It's called shock. Okay. And that means, I'll get to that now. Rongluk Shakpa. Say Rongluk Shakpa. By the way, the other one was Shen. Shen means other, right? Teach you a few Tibetan words here. So Rongluk Shakpa, or Shak for short, is when we set forth our own position. So Gok, they set forth their position. Then we set forth our position. So first we hear the wrong positions of the other guys, right? And then in the book, in the syllogism, in the duras, the different duras, they'll present their own position. They'll say, here's what emptiness is. And in there, there'll be a definition, there'll be divisions, there'll be clarification. And that's the small section in the middle, sandwiched in the middle, called Rongluk Shakpa. And then we have Poa, the third one. And Poa means to blow them away again, right? They came in and they said, this emptiness is a green spot above your head, right? And we say, no, this is what emptiness is, right? And so after they've heard our side, they get a chance to come back again with a rebuttal. They get to attack our ideas. So an example would say, they would say emptiness is this green spot above your head. And we might then say, emptiness means that no object in the world has any nature of its own. Sound familiar? That's our position, right? And they might then come back and say, yeah, right. So I guess you think nothing exists. Right? It's some kind of way. They set it up so they can come back again. They get to have a chance to refute what we said. And then, Pongwa, we get to blow them away again. So normally Pongwa means to eliminate someone, right? Well, we're not getting rid of them, but we're getting rid of their idea, right? And we do this through debate, through these syllogisms, and trying to get to the truth of something. So these 3 steps, Gak, Shak, Pong. So they're known as Gak, Shak, Pong, Sum. And they're very famous in the Dura. Say Gak, Shak, Pong, and Sum means 3. Oh my goodness. So if somebody were to ask you, what are you reading? You could say Gak, Shak, Pong, Sum. So what, in fact, is the subject? We're just talking about the 3 steps. So what is the subject? It is called Shidrup. Everybody say Shidrup. Shidrup. So, and we're going to talk about what it is later on, but what we're studying in this class is, say, Shidrup Ki Namshak. Shidrup Ki Namshak. And in the texts, we study it from the viewpoint of Gak, Shak, Pong, Sum. Someone comes up and says something stupid, and then they get blown away. And by the time you've had 10 people come up and they say 10 stupid things, right, about emptiness, and they get blown away, then you've got a pretty good idea about what emptiness is. And then you get to hear our own system, which is called the Rangluk. And then they get to come back and fight about the system. So this is a very powerful learning tool. I think it would be very powerful in our, at least in my country, where everything is so divisive. It would be a powerful tool to be able to listen to somebody else and figure out what's really at the base of something. Like what's at the base of somebody's fears, right? So it can be good in debating to start with a wrong statement. To start a debate going, if you're a good debater, you pick something that the other guy might not be able to disprove, something subtle, something that's just slightly wrong from your understanding. Like, emptiness means that things depend on my projections. Is that emptiness? Is that what emptiness means? That's a positive thing. It's depending on something. We say that's dependent origination. And dependent origination explains how things work. Emptiness is an absence. Emptiness is about how things don't work. Right? So you could start a good debate that way. So how do you begin a debate? I am talking about debate a little bit. There's a whole bigger piece in this class about debate. You say something slightly wrong or stupid. The defender is sitting at some point. I'll tell you, Venerable Utpala and I are going to get together and show you how to debate sometime during this course, right? When she's feeling better, we'll do that. So the defender is sitting down on the ground, and the attacker, I don't have my mala here with me. The attacker is standing up, and if you're a good debater, you pick something that the other person might not be able to refute, to disprove. You wouldn't say something obvious like emptiness is green. You wouldn't say that. You'd come up and say, the phrase that we just talked about. Well, emptiness means that things depend on my projections, which we just talked about. It's dependent origination, which is the flip side of emptiness, right? There's emptiness, and the other side is dependent origination. They work together. Dependent origination explains how things work, and emptiness, how things don't work. But we could start a good debate that way. You could say, oh, emptiness means that. So what do? You go up to somebody and you say, okay, you're very respectful to the person or the group of people sitting down. Usually there's a group of people and one person who is the one that you'll debate with at that moment, like the spokesperson. And so there's this custom, an old custom in Tibet, and it comes from ancient India. And when you read the scripture from ancient India, you will see, and maybe you'll know this from some sutras that you've heard already. Thus have I heard. And then they'll say somebody like Subhuti approached the Buddha. He got down on one knee and dropped his robe, his upper robe called the sen. Out of respect, he drops his shawl. And this is still done in the debate ground in the monastery. And say to his opponent, the attacker will stand up and then drop their sen, right? Out of, we would say, the first and last courtesy of the debate, because it gets pretty intense after that. And then you whisper in their ear the subject. It's very calm and very mild. And you say, D. Everybody say, D. D is the root syllable of Manjushri. It's a tantric mantra, and it's the short mantra of Manjushri. And it's an important syllable for wisdom. Why? We're asking to be able to remember everything that we've been taught and to be open to learning. So when I visited Sarah many moons ago, before my 3-year retreat, there were all these little monks running around, right? And you can hear the little ones running around just saying and this mantra it's very powerful. So it comes from a longer mantra, which is, oh, sorry, every time I click on it. Yeah, no, I didn't give you the full mantra. I just had to check. Let me go back. Same Om, A, Rapa, Sana, and you say it until you run out of breath, right? And D in Sanskrit, which is, stop it, computer. This is the Sanskrit letter D. This is the Tibetan letter D. I wanted you to see both of those. Very holy. It means light. So shed some light on this, right? So you start out, when you start, you say, D, Jitar Chuchen. And D means, hey, you know, wisdom, I hope I can remember everything. And Jitar Chuchen is, how about this? And then you say something like, because the sky is green. Di Chichar Ju Chen, because the sky is green. That's our subject. That's all. Is it a reason? Because the sky is green? No. Well, you could say you're setting it forth as a reason. It doesn't have to mean anything. We never have to say what we're trying to prove. What does it prove? Who cares? Doesn't matter, right? She can evaluate the reason by herself, right? You'll see. So starting a debate, Di Jitar's Chu Chen, because everything is a projection, and that's the meaning of emptiness. Because the sky is green, everything is a projection, and that's the meaning of emptiness. And I don't have to know, or you don't have to know what I'm trying to prove. You don't ever have to say, I don't ever, so I and you, I don't ever have to say what I'm trying to prove. I can just say, hey, how about this? Because the sky is green. And you can come back and say, Tak Madrup. Say Tak Madrup. Tak Madrup means you're wrong. No way, right? And that starts debate. So normally you start out with something, as I've been saying, crazy, because you want to start an argument. You want to start a debate. And if you're a good debater, you say something that's almost right and see if they can prove you wrong. And if they can't, then you blow them away at the end and you show them why it's wrong. And then it's not about winning. It's not about losing. It's about everybody learns something. So this is the structure of the Dura text. They come up and they start saying things that are wrong, and then you hear them and you listen, and then they get blown away one by one, and you learn something subtle about emptiness until the end of the debate, right? You understand everything that emptiness, or whatever your subject is not. So remember, when you're in the reading, the first person talking is crazy. They're just confused and crazy like me. And that's the person who's getting gawked, right? They're getting gawked. Remember that first word, gawk? They're getting blown away. They're getting cut off. So don't forget that. Because if you forget that, you'll get confused. And sometimes it's hard to tell which, or at least I find it hard, when we change who is talking in the syllogism. Sometimes I find it hard. And if you come to translators, if you come to Mixed Nuts, to Xuanzang's Tower, you'll notice there too, sometimes we're not quite sure who is talking. So they'll come up and say blah, 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 and then you have to remember that they're wrong. And in Tibetan, it's very subtle who's talking. And sometimes, like during Xuanzang's Tower, you don't know who's talking till maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs later from what you're trying to translate. And then you have to go back and change it all. So it's very subtle. And don't get discouraged. Stick with it. Find a quiet time when you can focus, when you can really put your mind to it, and just keep chewing on it. We're not going to do any debate today. But the subject today is called, let me go back to this other part, Shidrup Ki Namshak. Say Shidrup Ki Namshak. We talked about it earlier, right? Shidrup means existence, like things that you can establish that they exist. So it's the outline of all existence. Namshak means types of things. So Shidrup Ki Namshak is everything you ever wanted to know about things that you can establish as existing. Okay? Everything you ever wanted to know about things that you can establish as existing. So we're going to go through an outline of Shidrup, and that's our subject for today. We're going to study all existing things. Pretty cool, huh? All existing objects. And when we study it, we'll start at the top and then go down through the levels of all existing things. And so why are we doing this? You need to know about it to understand emptiness. So we'll go down through the levels of it. And then I'll tell you how it relates to your own understanding of emptiness, and of trying to see emptiness directly. So what's the big deal about seeing emptiness directly? Yeah. If you see it for 15 or 20 minutes, you are on your way out of this suffering life. You know you will become an enlightened being in 7 lifetimes at the most. You see the day of your enlightenment. You see it directly. Imagine, as you get older and your body starts falling apart, if you have that wisdom of having seen your future lives, how much easier it would be to accept what's happening to your falling apart body, right? Because you have nothing to worry about because you've seen it and it's true. Not like me, it's like, I don't know where I'm going to end up after this life. So if you can get this class clearly, if you can understand these subjects clearly, you can reach that state. You can see the 4 Arya truths. So once you've studied Shidrupki Namshak, you will be able to reject about 99, or maybe not 99, 90% of the presentations on emptiness you ever hear. You see clearly that they're wrong right away. So let's talk about Yupa. Yupa means existence. All existing objects. That's the big heading at the top, right? These are all synonyms. How about Sheja? Knowable things. So what does that mean? Something that can be known by an omniscient being. That means it exists. The tree in the forest thing doesn't apply here. There is no tree in the forest because we're talking about things which are known. So tree in the forest, there's this thing this question, well, if a tree in the forest falls and there's nobody around to hear it, did the tree fall? There's no one around to hear it or to see it, right? We're talking about things which are known by a being who sees everything in the universe at the same moment. So there's no tree that nobody hears in Buddhism, right? Because an enlightened being has observed it, has heard it. So knowable things, Sheja. All things are known. The next one, Chu, Dharma. Chu is Tibetan for the Sanskrit word Dharma. It's the Tibetan for it, right? And Chu has 10 or 12 meanings. One is teachings, and one is any existing object, existing thing. Remember, we're talking here about synonyms for Shidrup. And so far we have Yupa. So if you are a Yupa, you're a Sheja. if you're a sheja, you're a chu, right? And if you're a chu, you're a shidrup. Don't forget, shidrup means anything which can be established as existing, right? As existing how? By a correct perception, by a valid perception. That's a sheja. And then one more today, yul, object. Yep, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Okay, I'm goofing up here, my computer there. And again, yul means any existing object. These are all synonyms, not cinnamon, synonyms for existing things. And they can be used for all existence, all together. So it can be used for all existing things, but it can also be used for all existing things. All existing things in the sense that this glass is an existing thing, and this tissue is an existing thing, and this phone is an existing thing, right? So, and also as words for existing things. And there are more, but this is all we're going to do today. And it's very interesting because in Tibetan and Sanskrit, and I'm sure there are other languages, although I'm not a linguist in the world, there is no word for a and the. In English, we would use a glass or the phone, meaning, my phone, the phone, not just a phone, but the phone, right? We have these words to help us identify things. And at least in English, and those of you who learn English as a second language, if you don't use a or a and the, right, it would get pretty confusing if we don't use it, right? And it is, as I said in the Tibetan, when translating, it's confusing to go through a page of translation and then suddenly realize they're talking about a existing thing rather than all existing things. And then you have to go back and change it all, right? So please be grateful for these translators who are working so hard to translate these texts for us into English, and then they get translated again into other languages, which is very cool. So try to speak to somebody in English or your language. If you have a and the, try to speak in a sentence and see how it is. See if they know what you're talking about, right? Pass me phone, right? Not pass me the phone or pass me a phone, but pass me phone. It's like, what are you talking about? So we're going to talk about yupa. Semi mikpe yupa tseni, which is the definition of yupa. And we're going to divide yupa. And this division of yupa, it's a chart of existence. There's yupa, which is all existence, right? We just talked about that. And before defining it, we need to define it. Seme mikpe yupa tseni. Tseni means definition, right? What is a sema? And I can't have the chat open, so hopefully somebody put it in there, but sema is a valid or correct perception. You're not hallucinating, you're not on any drugs, you're not drunk, nothing that have compromised your perceptions. You're not really angry or jealous. Those things, being angry or jealous or under the influence of drugs or alcohol, are called semins, which are not valid or incorrect. So how many semas a day do we have? 65 per finger snap, right? That's what keeps our world going like a movie. We are having these valid perceptions. They may not be correct, but they are valid, right? Perceptions all day long. Mikpa, the second word, means perceived by. They're being perceived by a correct perception, by a valid perception. Yupa, we know all existing things. And seni, definition. So the definition of an existing thing is anything that can be perceived by a valid perception. That is the definition of existence in Buddhism. It's that which can be perceived by someone who's not crazy on drugs, overcome by jealousy. And then you can say the thing exists. All existing things exist. You can establish they exist. That's a tongue twister. Establish they exist. As soon as you can say someone has perceived them, who's not on drugs or crazy or hallucinating or, something like that. Remember that we are in school number 2 for this whole course, the Sautantrika school. It's a Hinayana school. And we have only a small mind. It's mostly Sautantrika. There will be some ideas presented as part of this class that are not correct. There are a few mind-only ideas that are also presented. So just to remember which hat you're wearing. It's not the Madhyamika Prasangika hat. It's the Sautantrika hat. So Semi-Mikpa is accepted by all schools as the definition of existence. And what they mean by it usually is a little different with each school. It's very touchy. And I'll try to warn you, or Venerable Utpala and I will try to warn you when we're getting to points where they're much different, say, than Master Shantideva's ideas, even though they may use the same language. On the debate ground, Seme Mikpa Yupa Seni. Say it again. Seme Mikpa Yupa Seni. Seni Mikpa Yupa Seni. It is a mantra on the debate ground. The definition of existence is that, simply put, that which can be perceived by a valid perception. And now we're going to divide Yupa into Takpa and Mitakpa. So this is a system that we're going to blow away. Takpa means, they say, one of the schools says, Takpa means permanent, and Mitakpa means impermanent. In Buddhist philosophy, this is a mistranslation, and you will read it and hear it a lot. And it's one of Geshe Michael's pet complaints. And we'll talk about why it is one of his complaints. So let's talk about mitakpa, being mistranslated as impermanence. It comes in two forms, mitakpa. It comes in a gross and very, very subtle forms. If you go home and you meditate deeply on Shijo, all existing things, you will see something very deep. And if you can perceive that in this lifetime, what it is in its very subtle form, you are very close to seeing emptiness. It is the precursor to seeing emptiness. So mitakpa, correctly defined by the logic schools, the South Tantrika, very simply and accepted by all, is kachikma. Kachikma. It's a very simple definition of mitakpa. Kachik means instant. So a kachikma, or kachikma, is something that only lasts for an instant. That's subtle impermanence, right? When you drop your cell phone, it breaks. That's gross impermanence. When you're using it all day, every day, then it wears out. If anybody has an old-fashioned clock, you can think about that as the second hand goes click, 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 right? It's a victim. My phone, if just using it every day, is a victim of subtle impermanence. Every moment it's deteriorating, bit by bit, 65 finger snaps in a second, each one, and it's getting older. That's kachikma. So if you think about it, all those objects are only lasting for an instant. They're changing instant by instant, and that's the point of mitakpa. And Geshe translates it as changing thing, not impermanent. Okay. So kachikma is the process by which it changes. So in your homework, if it asks you what it is, changing things, each of which are defined as anything that lasts only for a moment. And the classical examples that they give would be a pillar, which is known in Tibetan as kawa, or a water pitcher, bumpa. So these are the classic examples. Why? Because they're around everybody, especially, in the monastery, or every building is held up by posts, by pillars. So you can look around and contemplate the existence of a pillar. Is it changing? Are the bugs going to eat it and it's finally going to fall down? Right? Or is it not? And then a water pitcher as well. They're made out of clay usually, sometimes metal, but mostly out of clay. And they're in everybody's house. And because water was collected in them. In modern times, we could say a glass or a cup, right? Because it's something that we have and use all the time and is around us. But the classical examples are a pillar or a water pitcher, kawa or bumpa. So there's these two different words, changing thing and impermanent. What does impermanent, think about it. What does it mean to you? Permanent die or impermanent die? One that lasts and the other that doesn't. Lord Buddha said the very creation of a thing is the seed of its destruction. Because I was born, I'm going to die. What does Tongpani mean? Shunyata. Tongpa means empty. So it means emptiness. Tongpani. So shunyata or tongpani, emptiness, is the classic example in the whole world of something which is takpa. So we talked about mitakpa. Now we're going to talk about takpa. It's the opposite of mitakpa. It's the classical example of a thing that they mistranslated as permanent. Is emptiness permanent? If it was, what does that mean? It never wears out. It doesn't last. If permanent is a good translation, then emptiness should last forever. Does emptiness last forever? Does the emptiness of this glass last forever? When this glass breaks and is no longer a glass, the emptiness of the glass is gone. So does it last forever, the emptiness? Does it slowly wear out? Or when the glass is gone, the emptiness is gone. When I'm gone, Gyelse's emptiness is gone. Right? So does it last forever? If it doesn't, we should use a different term. And so we use unchanging. The technical definition for takpa, for unchanging things, is one object. I'll say it slowly because you'll want to write it down. One object, which is both a thing and which is not such, that it only lasts for a moment. Say it again. One object, which is both a thing and which is not such, that it only lasts for a moment. And there are two classical examples. One is Tompani, shunyata, emptiness. And the other one is empty space, namka in Tibetan. Those are the two examples. Empty space. So the space in front of me, between me and you, me and the computer, we can say it's empty at the moment. And I put my glass into it. Does the empty space change? Is it permanent? Permanent? We were not going to use that word, right? Is it unchanging? Right? Does it go somewhere when I put the glass in it and come back when I take the glass out? You got to cook it. Think about it. It's just, I'll give you a clue. It's just occupied. The glass is occupying the empty space. It doesn't push the space out, does it? Take it to the debate ground. Take it to your meditation. This is Rosa's dog. She needed a picture of a dog with a pen in its mouth, so she thought, oh, let's see if he can do it. So is the pen takpa or mitakpa? Is it changing or unchanging? Keep an eye on the time here. It's changing by the instant. So what's the proof? Your pen runs out of ink, right? That's the proof that it's changing. It's been changing all the time. The ink has been evaporating since the day it was made. And in Buddhism, we say the cause for its destruction is its creation. So putting the ink in there is assuring that it's going to run out of ink. If it never had any ink in it, there would be no ink to run out. So maybe it was really stupid that you put ink in there, because now it's going to run out, right? It's the cause of its destruction. You don't need to get hit by a car. Your body will kill you very nicely if you don't get hit by a car. It will deteriorate. And anybody who's over 50 knows that and is experiencing it, right? Does the pen have its own emptiness? Yeah. Why? Why does it have no nature of its own? Oh, no. It has a nature of a pen. What do you mean? Forget it. That cylinder could just as well be a chewable object for a dog. It's valid and correct. And it can be perceived by a dog as a chewable object. And then when our dogs chew something up that we were attached to, we get upset. Because to us, it's one thing. But to the dog, it's just a chewable toy. It's just something to chew on. Who's right? Who's right? Yeah, they're going, That's a great chewable object. And they would never, ever perceive it as a pen. They would never, ever put it in their mouth and write a note to their owner saying, you don't give me enough treats. Okay? No, they wouldn't. They'll see it as a toy. Okay? Therefore, its penness is not inherent in it. It's empty of the nature of being a pen. And it's equally empty of being a chew toy. Inherently. That's the important word, right? But these two beings, the person and the dog, we each supply it with the nature that we're forced to see it as because of our past seeds. We project a nature onto it. The dog projects a chew toy, I project a pen, right? So if you think deeply about it, that is what it is to be a dog or a human. If you see it as a chew toy, of course, there are those of us who chew on our pens. Does that mean we're part dog? Maybe from a past life we have a bit left over, huh? But it doesn't have any nature of being a pen or a chew toy from its own side. It doesn't have any nature, actually. When this pen is destroyed, it's melted down or breaks down into the earth, destroyed at the garbage dump, does its emptiness disappear? Nod yes or no. Yes, it disappears, right? The fact that this particular pen could have been anything else, the fact that this particular pen doesn't have any nature of its own goes away. We don't say it stops and starts. That would imply a gradual starting and a gradual ending. And that doesn't apply to emptiness. Why? Emptiness just blinks out. Just blinks out. When this pin is destroyed, on the day that it becomes non-functional, in the millisecond that it can no longer write, it's goes out of existence. And I'm talking about a usable pen here, right? 5 minutes before it ran out of ink, did it have any less of a lack of a self nature than it did the day it was created? No. It's unchanging. That emptiness is totally constant. It's 100% an object which has no self nature. It's 100% empty. The day it's made, 10 days later, 2 months later, 3 years later. And just the millisecond before it stops working, it is equally and perfectly void of any self nature. It could have been a chewable object. In fact, it is a chewable object for a dog. And for a cat, they're going to bat it around on the floor. Watch it roll. It doesn't have any nature of its own. Sometimes I use pens for hair sticks. Then it's no longer a pen, it's a hair stick, right? It's 100% empty. It is something that will never be more or less. You can't be more or less empty. Empty is empty, right? And it's not like, oh, it's got 10% self-nature today. And it had 12% yesterday, right? It's not like that. So permanent is a really bad translation for the fact that it's unchanging. Emptiness is unchanging. And that's the whole point of Takpa and Mitakpa. And it's a mistranslation. Is the emptiness of this pen permanent? No. It goes away. So you can't use that word because it is Takpa. The emptiness of the pen will just go out of existence. We don't say it stops. It just goes out of existence. And until that moment, it will be 100% pure emptiness, as much as it was the day it was made. That never changes. That is unchanging. It is perfectly constant and consistent. And that is the meaning of Takpa. It's not a thing which lasts for a moment or changes moment to moment. And you need to meditate on it to perceive it. It can only be confirmed by you if you meditate on it deeply. You can't say that the emptiness of the pen began. It did come into existence. And then that is a serious distinction. If you get it, you'll be very close to understanding the subtle impermanence, which is kokir, meaning hidden. Right? It's deep. It's hard to perceive without meditating. And right after that, when you get to that point in your meditation, you'll probably perceive chi chedrak, qualities and characteristics. And right after that, you'll perceive emptiness directly. So these three subjects, what you're talking about, are very closely related. If you can see subtle impermanence directly, you are very, very far along. You can understand it intellectually. And if you ever really see that everything is like blinding, changing every second, it's a flow of things, you're very close to seeing emptiness directly. So that's the difference between permanent and unchanging. It's takpa, not mitakpa. In certain contexts, mitakpa can and is well translated as impermanent. For instance, in the Lam Rim, chiwa mitakpa means the impermanence of the fact that you have to die. And that is a good translation. It has to do with the context that the words are in. So, so hopefully you have an idea about changing and unchanging things and emptiness and dependent origination, all of these, the existence of all things, all of these things that we've talked about here this morning. So we talked about classical examples for Mitagpa. We talked about the pillar, the gawa, and the bumpa, the water jug, or we usually say the coffee cup now. They are all synonyms for working things, for nupos. Nupo means working thing, functioning thing, something that does something, any object in the universe which changes also does something. If nothing else, it contributes to the continuation of itself. It acts as the cause for something. Anything in the world which changes is performing a function. So there are synonyms, and you need to get used to them, and you'll never be able to understand the most subtle teachings of the Madhyamika Prasangika. So the definition of nupo is anything which performs a function. Dunje nupa nupe tseni. Dunje nupa nupe tseni. Anything which performs a function. If you remember, tseni means definition, right? Dun means thing. So dunje means to do something. Nupa means it has that ability. So emptiness must be a nupo, right? Remember that nupo and mitakpa are synonyms. Something that does something and something that changes are synonyms. Changing things and working thing are synonyms. When I presented and said unchanging things, I said a good example would be emptiness because it never changes. It's either 100% empty or it's 0% empty. You can't be more or less void of any nature. You either are or you're not. So I guess emptiness is not a working thing, right? By definition, right. If it was a working thing, it would be changing. Is emptiness a changing thing? If it were a changing thing, you would have to say emptiness gets more or less empty or something like that. So is it a changing thing or an unchanging thing? Emptiness. It's a lot to think about. I can see faces going, oh, where are we? Just hang in there. It is class 13, right? And as I said on Sunday, I did this class. I took it 3 times, and I don't know, still sometimes it goes right over my head and I don't understand. It's like, what? So just hang in there and keep cooking it, as Ken Rinpoche would say. So we have existing things. And then they went on to changing and unchanging. So I'm going to give you 3 kinds of changing things. Get your pens and paper out. 3 great divisions. And then we'll be done with Shidrup Ki Namshak. So the first one is the low tone Suk. And I'm not very good at Tibetan, so excuse my, it's not Suk, it's Suk, Suk, Suk. meaning a physical thing. Let me see. Say suksurungwa. Okay, wake up. Suksurungwa, suki seni. Seni, definition, right? And suk, we know, is a physical thing, an object. Suksurungwa is the definition of something physical. Let's say blue. Try to explain colors to beings who have never seen colors. What's the only way you can define a color? When you get down to colors, you can't use words. You have to point to it. You can't describe blue. Someone has to see blue, right? It's very interesting. So surungwa means anything you can show as a physical thing, as suk. Examples would be sawe rekcha. Say sawe rekcha. Sawe means hot or heat, and rekcha means an object you can touch, right? A tangible object. So it's another word for physical things. And then another one is, and I didn't put this one up there for you. It's Pembo Dulda Drupa, a thing composed of atomic particles. So that's a composite of things, something that's composed of smaller pieces. And in this case, suk means physical matter. And again, seni means definition. You know, it's a word you better learn. Seni. Going to use it a lot. So learn this word, seni. It means definition. So what's an example? It's a sawe rekcha. Something that is hot to the touch. Okay. So that's the first division. What do you think the second division of changing things would be if the first one is physical stuff, matter? The second one would be mental things. If you say mind can get you in trouble, because we're also talking about thoughts here, right? In English, the word mind means the main mind. And you have thoughts in the main mind. And so this refers not to the main mind, but to your thoughts, shepa. The definition of shepa, the tseni, is selshing rikpe, selshing rikpe, shepa tseni. Selshing rikpe, shepa tseni. What does this mean? A cell means, it usually means clear, but here it means invisible. Shing is and. Rikpa is aware. Shepa is a mental thing, as we said. And seni, you all know, definition. The definition is of a mental thing is something which is invisible and aware, clear and knowing. So in the West, at least, we tend to confuse physical matter, like our brain, which it's closely related to, with our mind. When somebody says, "Where's your mind?" we go like this. For a Tibetan, if you ask them, "Where's your mind?" they go like this. They point to their heart. For a Buddhist philosopher, it would be insane to say my mind is here, because the mind, can you find the mind? If they do an operation on your brain, do they find your thoughts? Do they find your mind? Does your mind stay in your body? Close your eyes for a moment. Think about what's in your refrigerator. Your mind just went to your refrigerator. It is not in your body. You can open your eyes now. Right? Your mind is ineffable. It can't be located. It can't be touched. It's not even up to the end of your skin. And you just saw it goes beyond that, right? You can think of what's in your refrigerator. And in a sense, your mind has gone there. So where is your mind? Can you see your mind? They're all very difficult questions. And then we have two examples. We have Dewa and Geshe. Dewa means happiness, and Geshe means wisdom. So these are the two examples for Shepa. What time is it? Oy, 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 we better rush. So did we cover all changing things? What about Roxana? Is she changing? Is she physical or mental? She incorporates both, right? But what about Roxana? Roxana, in quotes, is a concept. Person is a concept. You can't touch person. You can touch body, right? Could you touch mind by getting her mad? Maybe. But quote Roxana is very subtle. We are a combination of body and mind, but we are neither of them in and of itself. So that's the third thing. It's like a conceptual changing thing, or the second. So it's a concept which is changing. The whole category of things is called Demenduce. Demenduce are active things. Den means to possess. Min is a negative, not, so not possess. Duce is something that does something. It's an active thing. It's produced. An active thing which is neither mind nor matter, neither one or two. And the example here is Kangsak. Kangsak is person, in quotes. Kangsak is Roxana, is when, right? Is Irina, in quotes. They have both a physical form and a mind, but they are not either of those. And yet it still changes. We could be talking about a bird or a dog or a tree. So the definition, Demen duje bemshe gangrung mayimpe duje. Again, Demen duje is active thing. She, a little bit further on, means mental thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Bam means active thing. She means mental thing. Gangrung means either one. Duje means produced thing. Mayimpe means not, a thing which was produced. So the definition is an active thing, you might want to write this down for your homework, which is neither mind nor matter, is a produced thing, which is neither mind nor matter. Active means it does something. So it's a code word for changing thing. It is synonymous with produced thing or changing thing, which is neither mind nor matter. It combines both physical and mental. It's an idea. Sometimes translated as composed thing or compositional, if you want to get big and fancy. Space is composed of its directions: north, south, east, west, up, down, right? It's not mitakpa. So again, it's not a good translation. It is, Demenduje is a synonym for nupa and mitakpa, working thing and changing. Demenduje is the third kind of changing thing. For example, in the Abhidharma system and the Vaibhashika system, when you get to a certain point, you'll never be born in hells again. A certain thing grows on your body in your continuum, which keeps you unpossessed by that thing. So in the Vaibhashika system, there are certain things that are neither mind nor matter which exist. And we call these bakchaks. Never heard that word, bakchak? Seeds. Are they mind? No. They live in the mind. Are they matter? No. You can't operate them. You can't manage them physically, right? So what is a bakchak? It is a mental seed. It is a propensity, an energy in the mind. It's neither physical. It resides in the mind, but it's neither physical nor mental. There is a huge debate about that, right? It's in the refrigerator. It's in the Kunchi Namparsheba. But those are some examples. Or you just are walking bakchaks. They're not too common. And there is a debate about whether words are physical sounds or concepts. Those would be Demenduche, depending on whose school you're in. And the example here is, say, Gangsak. Gangsak, a person. It could be a horse, it could be a dog, it could be a human, it could be Roxana. If you think about it, though, it's an idea. You can't touch Roxana. You can't throw Natasha, we can throw Roxana off the Zoom. We could do that if we wanted to. But Roxana is an idea that covers her body and her mind. Roxana is a concept. Is it changing? Yeah. But, and, it's neither physical nor mental. It combines both. It is a concept which combines both. So think about it. Where am I? Where is when her mind, her body, is she all of it combined? Not without the concept of when. If she were just her mind and body, then whenever she walked into any room, everyone would be able to say, there's when, there's Roxana, right? It's this concept that we put upon this body and this mind, and we say, that's me. And we're very attached to it. And that gets us in trouble. Something to cook. A lot of stuff here. So we're done with shidrups. And then because the time is getting late, and it was getting late last night. It's like, okay, I covered 5 homeworks. Let's just do the last one without any explanation. So the question is, how does the description of ultimate reality in the system of Buddhist logic schools differ from its description in the highest school of Buddhism, the Prasangika Madhyamika school, the middle way school of philosophers? And we would say those of the logic schools believe that something belongs to ultimate reality when it can, in a very real way, perform a function. The Madhyamika school, though, Madhyamika Prasangika, the middle way, say that the only example of ultimate or higher reality is emptiness itself. That was a horse race, and we didn't even cover everything in the class. These classes went on for more than 2 hours. I can share with you. So it's trying to consolidate it all. We really didn't get to the debate part of it. So I'm not sure when we will make that up, because Sunday's class is also very full. Sunday for me might be a different day for you guys. So thank you for hanging in there with me. Your meditation until Sunday is to spend 15 minutes every day. I'll share that with you. There you go. Thinking about whether your current idea of what emptiness fits the description that it's an unchanging thing. I think even as we think about emptiness, we think about it as something that is permanent. We're thinking about it the wrong way. Even as we talk about the pen, we're thinking about it being a self-existent pen. We're thinking about emptiness as being self-existent. And it's even in our language. So see if you can begin to break down where you're holding on to. Well, even emptiness exists self-existently. It too is a projection. It has no self-existence. And don't get scared by that. So, in Thanksgiving for all that our teachers have given us in the past, the ability that I have to be able to pass this on to you, all of those blessings. And then you're going to be able to use it to see emptiness directly for yourself and for all beings and to teach others. Let us offer this perfect world. And I'm going to recite it in English this time, and you guys can recite it in whatever language touches your heart. Let's think of what this perfect world is going to look like and offering it up to every being. Here is the great earth, filled with the smell of incense, covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain of the sun and moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. And now let's dedicate all of our goodness. By the goodness of what I have just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. Kewadi, Kewopun, Sunam Yashe Soksok Jing, Sunam Yashe Lejungwe, Tampa Kuni Toparsho. And we have 2 minutes to spare. So thank you, everybody, for hanging in there. I'm going to pull up the chat. Just, oh my gosh, there's 99 messages. Let's see if I want to save it so I can look at it later. Let's see. Save chat. There we go. So thank you for hanging in there. I know it's a lot to take in, a lot to think about. You got a little bit of time to think about it until Sunday when you get more poured into you. So until then, just cook it and talk with others about it. And please form study groups, and because it's a lot. And it's so, I love looking at all your faces, people who I know. There's a whole group here from Vietnam, and let's see, yep, there's Tin as well, and people from who are Russian speaking and Ukrainian speaking, and people from all over the world, and it's so cool. So it's lovely to see you all, and I'll see you on Sunday in a few days. Okay. Bye-bye. Have a good rest of your week.